Hey guys, sorry we couldn't be there. I want to apologize to our group member and everybody else in the class. We know it sucks and it kind of seems unfair, but sorry. But this is our presentation. All of us wrote about plantations and different ones throughout. We some of us did ones in Maryland, some of us did ones in other parts of the nation, but we all revolved around plantations and what they are today and how they really interpret slavery. So our goals, like I said, each of us talked about plantations and what they are today, and really just how they interpret slavery individually, and not only how they interpret it, but how they, display it to the public and how they convey it to the public during tours and things of that nature on their site. You know, there's a wide range of how plantations do. There's not a set like rule or guidebook for the entire nation of museums as to this is how everyone's going to interpret slavery and this is how everyone is going to display it for their guests at their museum. But each of them display it differently, and really there's different reasons as to why they do this. So the first one that we talk about is actually JP, so I'm going to hand it over to him and let him go with it.
All right. So the first one I focused on particularly was the Monticello plantation. It's sort of similar to the Hampton House like we visited, except it was Thomas Jefferson's home. It's located in Charlottesville, Virginia. And of course, the former third president of the United States used it as like a plantation, so he would had slaves, much like Hampton and more traditional houses had at the times. But today it's used more as like a museum or like some place that's dedicated to the history of the area. It focuses a little bit on the Jefferson family, of course, because of how big they were, especially in the town of Charlottesville, Virginia. But it uses the house itself as like more of a dedication to slavery kind of thing, where they address the topic of slavery. Like, it's not like they hide from the subject at all. It's the subject of the tours, and it basically just informs the public that like slavery went on there, and like what the lives were like of the people that lived there. So the next one I'll be talking about is a little bit different because it's not open yet, and that's the National Museum of African American History and Culture. It's scheduled to open up in Washington, D.C. September 24th, 2016, so that's this year. And the museum itself, as far as the website is concerned right now, is supposed to be geared more towards the stories of the people. It's not like Monticello where it's focused on that area or it's focused on maybe a family that used to live there because it's a museum. So more of this is focused on the African American culture and the slaves themselves. I know one story I found online was a farmer from Indiana that they focus on. They tell the story. It's not a wide, like, mainstream story, but they do tell like almost underground stories that interest the visitors to the museum. One thing that is to point out is that they do address slavery. It's not like other places that maybe run from it, but they do have other things there. It's because it's all African American culture. They'll have other like fun facts and like I know one thing that I found was Jim Brown, the football player's jersey will be there. But they will have exhibits based on slavery and authentic accounts from slavery. The last one I will be talking about is the Whitney Plantation, located in Louisiana. The plantation itself made news because it was a huge former slave plantation, and now it's basically used to commemorate the lives of the people, of the slaves that were there. It basically has like a couple, I don't know if you want to call them shrines, but dedicated memorials to people that were there, like what they did, why like they're being showcased or whatever it might be. So like that is a pretty special place. It's located in Wallace, Louisiana, which is close to Baton Rouge. It's a little bit like the back country. And this place is more of just not necessarily, it's in a historic district, but it's not necessarily geared towards the area. It's more geared towards the times of slavery and that were there. A fun fact about the times that were there was the movie Django Unchained from 2012. A scene was filmed there. The scene where like Django goes to find brothers, and like the guy he's with goes up to the owner to distract him, and Django like goes behind the house to find these people that he used to know and tries to kill them. So that was pretty. I mean, not a fun fact, but I guess something to throw in. So.
All right, so the one that I talked about in my paper, I talked about a couple, but the one that I thought it was important to bring up, especially since we went there, was the Hampton Plantation. Like I said, all of us have gone there, went on a field trip there, but just to give you a little background on it, it was built in 1745 by Charles Carnan Ridgely. At the time when it was built, it was the largest house in the nation, and still by today's standards, it's a very large house. At its peak, the Hampton Plantation was 25,000 acres, and within those 25,000 acres, there were a variety of things such as ironworks, there were mills, a variety of different grains and other plants were planted. They had thoroughbred horses, different kinds of cattle. They also had a quarry. But over time, it was handed down through different generations of the family, and eventually, in 1979, it was handed over to the National Park Service. When we went there, we got the tour and everything. I felt, at least, and I think everybody else would agree, they approached slavery very upfront. And, our tour guide did a very good job of, they didn't hide anything. They didn't keep it a secret. It happened, it was part of the history, and they were going to address it. And I thought that that's overall how they interpret slavery and how they convey it to the public, is that they take it head on and they talk about it and they don't hide it from you, because yes, it's a part of the history of that place and it should be addressed as so. The other one that I talked about, which I have not been to yet, is the Mount Clair Plantation right in Baltimore. Mount Clair Plantation was built in 1760 by Charles Carroll, who actually was a senator in Maryland. The plantation itself had over 100 enslaved people on it. It became a historic landmark in 1971. And the thing that I found interesting about this plantation that's different from others is, the enslaved people that we usually see on other plantations are doing domestic jobs, like in the house, that are either cooking, cleaning, other housework, or agriculture work, out in the fields planting, with the cattle, things like that. But at this one, they were also doing industrial jobs. They would go into the city and do things that, the biggest thing that was mentioned was the ironworks. They would go in the city and work with Baltimore Ironworks and do jobs like that. But I haven't been to this place. Like, I can't really say like how a tour, interprets slavery, how they display it on a tour. But looking on their website and looking over a couple other things that I've seen on them, they don't hide it. They say how it was, and they are upfront about it, just like Hampton is. They display it on their website as a section on their website, and they don't try to hide it within like a little paragraph of it. They're very upfront about it. So I think that they do a very good job of interpreting slavery.